Welcome to Jets Overtime. Our NFL Draft Preview is presented by Duncan. I'm Eric Allen alongside Leger Duzable and Brian Baldinger. Gentlemen, in a matter of weeks, GM Darren Muji and head coach Aaron Glenn will lead the Jets in a draft for the first time. Duz, what do you make of the landscape?
Excited right now, right? You have a new regime in town and you have a new GM, new head coach. They kind of want to put their culture and handprint on this roster, and the best way to do that is through the draft, right? You always want to add some good pieces in free agency, but you build through the draft, EA.
Baldy, the draft typically hinges on quarterback dominoes. Will Miami quarterback Cam Ward be the first player selected overall?
Absolutely, absolutely. I was at his pro day down in Miami a couple weeks ago, and the entire Tennessee Titan contingency was there before the workout, long after the workout. I think all indicators are after they met him and they watched him throw, they're like, this is our guy. The leadership, the maturity, how he mingled with everybody. I just think, and the fact that he's elevated, a bunch of different programs during his time, I think he is going to be the lock at number one right now.
Leger, there seems to be some uncertainty after Cam Ward. Cleveland and the Giants both could be looking at quarterbacks, but there are a pair of defensive prospects who could come off the board early.
Yeah, there's a unicorn in Travis Hunter, right? Abdul Carter, one of the best pass rushers in all the nation. So if you're the Cleveland Browns, yes, you need a quarterback, but if you have a generational talent, do you take him? Now, I thought it makes the most sense to pair Abdul Carter with Myles Garrett, and you have one of the best tandems at end in all the football. But now there's rumors that Travis Hunter, there's an affinity for him with the Cleveland Browns. They don't need a corner, Baldy, which means most likely he would start off as a receiver for the Cleveland Browns.
Baldy, the Jets just signed Justin Fields to free agency. He's going to be quarterback one. He's 26 years old. Does that mean quarterback is off the table for the green and white early?
Yes, I think it does. I mean, Tyrod Taylor is the senior backup right here. He understands his role. He's accepted that role in a lot of different places. But this is Justin Fields' team right now. And the Jets' job right now, starting with this draft, is to start building around him and never stop building around him, giving him every opportunity to succeed right now. So it's coaching, it's talent, it's putting him in a position to succeed. I think it takes the quarterback position out early in this draft. They might address it later, but certainly the first two picks, I think, are about building around Justin Fields.
I like the dynamic, though, with Fields and then Tyrod Taylor.
Correct.
Could the Jets be looking at a developmental passer maybe in the mid-rounds or late?
Yeah, I think third, fourth round, you look at a guy like Jalen Milroe who has a similar skill set to Justin Fields. It makes a lot of sense. A guy like Will Howard who is athletic, a big physical quarterback as well. I think in the third or fourth round makes a lot of sense for them to get a developmental type quarterback like Jalen Milroe or Will Howard, but I don't think you take one in the first or second round.
All right, Baldy, let's get right to it. What are the Jets' needs heading into the draft?
Well, I think, Justin Fields is the quarterback. You should never stop building around your franchise quarterback. And so tight end is certainly a need right now. There's two at the top of this draft, and Colston Loveland and Ty Warren. Wide receiver is certainly a need, and certainly another offensive lineman. Maybe not at the very top, but certainly a lineman you're going to have to draft to develop here along the way.
No surprise here. The former offensive lineman saying the Jets could use another offensive lineman. Now, where's our defensive lineman going to go?
Defensive line, for sure. And me and Baldy were just having a great conversation. This is probably the deepest interior defensive line group we've seen in recent memory, right? So you're going to be able to find a really good starter in the second, third, maybe even fourth round to pair with Quinnen Williams. I think another safety, more of an in-the-box safety. We have a lot of free safeties on this team. An in-the-box safety will go a long way in completing this roster for the Jets during the draft.
Gentlemen, a lot of ammunition for Muji and Glenn. You have the number 7 overall selection. You got the 42nd pick in round 2, number 73 in round 3. For more ahead on our draft preview presented by Duncan, let's bring in Caroline Hendershot and Ethan Greenberg.
Coming up, we're going to take a look at some of the defensive tackle prospects, one of the deepest positions in the draft this year, headlined by Michigan unanimous All-American Mason Graham. But we'll tell you who else to keep an eye on come draft day.
And speaking of consensus All-Americans, Ted McMillan out of Arizona is the first wide receiver off the board for many different mock drafts. Brian Baldinger will be showing us why scouts love him at the NFL level. Plus, we'll dive into some receivers who would be steals on day 2 or 3 of the draft. This segment is presented by Duncan. The Jets run on Duncan. Join the Jets for the annual draft party presented by Verizon on April 24th at 6:30 p.m. at MetLife Stadium. Redeem free tickets now at nyjets.com/draft party. The Jets draft party is supported by Cash App, Visa, Daily News, Dunkin', and Pepsi.
With the 10th pick in the 2022 NFL Draft, the New York Jets select Garrett Wilson, wide receiver, Ohio State.
All righty then, Garrett Wilson's going to the Jets.
Number 1 is Garrett Wilson out of Ohio State.
Wide receiver Garrett Wilson, number 1 wide receiver in this year's draft
12
class.
touchdowns, 15 yards of catch.
Look at that effort! Garrett Wilson, big time.
That was in 2022 when the Jets selected wide receiver Garrett Wilson, number 10 overall. And Baldy, the Jets could be looking to add another wide receiver in this year's draft. A lot of mock drafts have Ted McMillan out of Arizona going in the first round as early as number 5 overall. Why is he a top receiver in this year's draft?
Well, he's been unbelievably productive the last 2 years at Arizona. And then you have to look at his makeup. I mean, he's over 6'4", he's 219 pounds, and he's incredibly athletic and acrobatic. He can adjust to balls in the air. He's got a tremendous wingspan right here. So, and he's very talented after the catch. But contested catches is his baby. The ball's in the air, he wants to go get it.
Now, let's say he's not available in the top 10 anymore when the Jets are on the clock at number 7. Who else is worthy of a top 10 pick?
I mean, there's some receivers, maybe not top 10, but I mean, Matthew Golden out of Texas is a blazer. I mean, he ran a 4.29 40 at the combine. He could separate. Texas was in the playoffs the last couple of seasons now. He's been a part of that. Luther Burden out of Missouri is a guy that you have to consider right now. And Emeka Egbuka out of Ohio State, just won the national championship, has been a very productive receiver for the last 4 years.
All right, and you were saying earlier that Emeka Egbuka could go maybe later round 1, early day 2?
I think so, and because he's been in a system right now that receivers have flourished. Obviously, Garrett Wilson being one of those guys, Marvin Harrison Jr., on and on and on. But he's in that line of guys that have been unbelievably productive since his freshman year at Ohio State. Now, when he was the guy this year, he really flourished.
Well, we spoke about Ted McMillan earlier, but last year he had 8 touchdowns, 84 receptions, and his 1,319 receiving yards led the Big 12. He was named a consensus All-American after the 2024 season, and at 6'5" and 212 pounds, he is a threat when he gets open. So, Baldy, show me why he was so successful at the collegiate level and how that's going to translate to the NFL.
Well, here he is. I mean, you can line him up anywhere, inside or outside right here. But when you watch this route right here, this is basically a scramble drill right here where he's going to get vertical right now. And now this is where he really accelerates, like right here. Like he's going to go up, he's going to high point this ball. And when you watch him, he can just take this ball away from a defender who's right on him with his reach and his length right there. Like that's what makes him special, is those contested catches when the ball's in the air.
If the Jets selected McMillan, what would you think of the pairing with him and Garrett Wilson and how they would complement each other?
It'd be dynamic because, really they're interchangeable inside, outside. You can move them around, but you really have to, all right, which guy are we going to take away here? Because I think it's going to be an issue for opposing teams. Like, who are we going to double? Where are we going to roll our coverage to? Because if you roll the coverage away from either one of them, they have the ability to be able to win.
Well, there you have it for wide receivers. Coming up next, Ethan Greenberg and Leger Douzable are diving into defensive tackles of the 2025 draft class. Stick around. This segment is presented by Dunkin'. The Jets run on Dunkin'. Welcome back to this Jets Overtime NFL Draft Preview presented by Dunkin'. The Jets run on Dunkin'.
With the 3rd pick in the 2019 NFL Draft, the New York Jets select Quinnen Williams, nose tackle, Alabama.
This guy's been playing lights-out football.
Wrestled down by Quinnen Williams. That big bear of a defensive tackle making a play.
It's incredible how he can get around blocks at his size.
Yes, and guess who?
Yes, guess who? It's not hard to guess.
The last time the Jets took a defensive lineman in the top 10, you got to go back to 2019 when they selected all-pro defensive tackle Quinnen Williams with the 3rd overall pick. Dudes, you've been talking a long time now about getting Quinnen a running mate inside at defensive tackle. This year's best D-tackle prospect, Michigan's Mason Graham. But you think he might not even be there at 7 overall when the Jets select.
Correct.
What about his game makes him a potential top 5 pick?
Well, people will talk about how he's not the biggest D tackle, only weighing about 296 pounds. They worry about his arm length only being 32 inches. But the thing is, first step get off, first step quickness. That's what he brings, Ethan. And he knows he has that deficiency. So he gets his hands into the offensive lineman before they can get him on him. And then the things that quarterbacks really hate, Ethan, interior pass rush. That's what Mason Graham does at a high level. I mean, he's so athletic. Sometimes they allowed him to rush in a two-point stance in the interior of the defensive line. That's what he can do, create havoc in the run game with that first step get off. And he plays with good leverage. People talk about his weight being 296. He doesn't get moved off the ball very often. The only time he does get in trouble is when he gets a double team. Sometimes he does shorter arms. It's hard for him to disengage. But other than that, this is one of the best prospects in all the draft.
And after Graham, potential hot take here from Deuce in terms of the NFL draft media landscape. You have Walter Nolan, your second best defensive tackle prospect. Now, if Graham's off the board, is Walter Nolan worthy of a top 7, top 10 pick?
Maybe a bit of a reach, but it's not that far behind. Like somewhere in the teens is where Walter Nolan should go. I talked about how Mason Graham can provide that interior pass rush. Well, Walter Nolan can do the same thing. Ethan, he has tree trunks as legs. He's hard to move when it comes to double teams and offensive linemen trying to get him off his spot. Kind of reminds me of Keanu Benton that, the Steelers took a few years ago. Also has some Ed Oliver in his game as far as that first step get off to get up the field and create havoc. So it'd be maybe a little bit of a reach at 10, but in the teens, that's where Walter Nolan most likely will go.
And a name that Jets fans are familiar with in terms of a similar profile to build, Sheldon Richardson.
Correct.
He's similar height, weight as in Walter Nolan and Sheldon Richardson. So let's say the Jets don't go D-tackle on day 1. They want to go day 2 or day 3.
Correct.
Who do you have circled there?
Yeah, in round 2, when you look at a guy like TJ Sanders from South Carolina, I talked about interior pass rush and how quarterbacks hate that. He provides that as well, and he has very efficient hands from South Carolina. JJ Pegues, the crazy thing about him, Walter Nolan's teammate at Ole Miss, can moonlight on the offensive side too, Ethan. He's a guy that came in as a tight end, also ran some wildcat quarterback for him. That's how athletic he is. He's a guy that's probably gonna be there in the 3rd round. So those two guys, TJ Sanders and JJ Pegues, make a lot of sense in round 2 or round 3.
So let me ask you a philosophical question. Knowing what this Jets team looks like, what Steve Wilks wants to run, potentially what Aaron Glenn wants to run, what type of defensive tackle do you think the Jets are in the market for?
That's a really good question, Ethan, because it'll be interesting to see how much imprint Aaron Glenn has on the defense. He said Steve Wilks will call it. Well, by trade, Steve Wilks is a 4-3 guy. AG is a 3-4 guy, so those are usually bigger body D tackles. So let's say that Steve Wilks gets the full gambit. You're gonna want athletic D tackles. The couple of guys that I answered or told you about in round 2 or 3, TJ Sanders, JJ Pegues, these are guys that can get after the passer, but also can stand up in the run game. So I think that's what the Jets would target in round 2, 3, or 4 if they go defensive tackle.
Well, we started this segment talking about Mason Graham. Let's take a look at the film, what makes him this year's top prospect at defensive tackle.
You see how he plays with really good leverage? He's right here in the middle of your screen. He's on a spike move right here across the center's face. He does a really good job, not only with great lateral quickness, but also playing with great leverage underneath the helmet of the center. Watch how he fights out this tight end to the right. Does a good job ripping through that, beating 2 defenders and getting in the backfield and getting a tackle. Again, 296 pounds, people worry about his weight. He doesn't get moved off the ball. That's a great job by him, scraping across the center's face, getting in the backfield, and creating havoc. We're gonna see it from the end zone copy coming up next. You see it right here. Circle him again. He's in a 2-eye, which is the inside eye of this left guard right here. Does a good job with lateral quickness, staying square, not crossing over, fighting off the tight end's block, ripping through, and getting a tackle. This is what Mason Graham can provide you in the run game. On this next play right here, you see the explosive ability. You're gonna see him shoot this gap. He's right here in the center. Now he's in a 4-eye, which is the inside eye of this left tackle, number 62. Watch how he beats that down block, gets into the backfield, tackle for loss. That's what he does. Creates big time splash plays in the backfield. Mason Graham, again, only 296 pounds, gives you interior pass rush, but also against the run can create havoc.
And you really do get to see the wrestling background transition to the football field. But don't go anywhere, because coming up, we're doing a special draft edition of Make Your Case.
Welcome back to Jets Overtime. Our NFL Draft Preview is presented by Duncan Eric Allen alongside Leger Douzable and Brian Baldinger. Before we get to Make Your Case and Jets pressing needs, where are you feeling good if you're down to Hall right here at One Jets Drive about a couple position groups?
For sure, the running back position. And you heard Aaron Glenn talk about how they have a stable of running backs that they plan to use. You have Breece Hall, Braylon Allen, and Isaiah Davis, who all have a different type of skill set, but looks like AG and Tanner Enstrang is going to use their skill set to really establish the run game. So that's the one position group I don't see the Jets really attacking during the draft.
But it's interesting. This could be a historically good running back class, right?
It is. It's probably the best ever maybe we've ever seen. But again, the Jets are deep at running back right now.
How about what the Jets did in free agency on the defensive side of the ball that sets them up well heading into the draft?
Well, they plugged a lot of holes, but I feel good about the linebacker core. I mean, when you bring back Jamie and Sherwood, their leading tackler from a year ago, and Quincy Williams, and you pair them year 2 in this new defense that Steve Wilks is running, I feel like this tandem has a chance to get better and grow together. But those two starters, I feel good about where they're at the inside linebacker position.
A great transition, Baldy. Speaking about everybody growing together, let's bring back in Caroline Hendershot, Ethan Greenberg. We're going to play a little game we like to call Make Your Case. What is the Jets' most pressing need heading into draft weekend? Caroline, you're starting us off.
It's going to be defensive tackle for me, and we all know how productive Quinnen Williams is, but the consistent theme last season was how many double teams and triple teams he was facing. If there is a defensive tackle next to him that is productive, it's not only going to make the entire D-line stronger, it's going to make Quinnen Williams more productive. So even if the Jets don't go with someone like Mason Graham in the first round, there's still plenty of depth at this specific position. You could go with Darius Alexander or Kenneth Grant in the later rounds like day 2 or 3.
Okay, for me, I'm going to the offensive side of the ball. I'm circling tight end, and the Jets like what they have in Jeremy Ruckert and Stone Smart, but this is just a group that doesn't have a ton of experience. The Jets have 4 tight ends on the roster right now. They've combined for 66 career receptions, 313 yards, and 1 touchdown. Tyler Warren out of Penn State is the most popular pick to the Jets at number 7 overall, but if the Jets don't go there on day 1, they could address the tight end position on day 2 or 3.
Baldy?
Well, I think that when you look at the offense now that is being built around Justin Fields, they desperately need another playmaker. There's basically Garrett Wilson right now and other guys like Jeremy Ruckert, but they need a playmaker, whether it's tight end or whether it's receiver. They've got to address that position here, and they need a star to step in and help this offense.
Well, Baldy, for me, I'm going to the trenches. I know you'll like this answer. It's right tackle because teams win through the trenches, right? And they have a chance to solidify this young offensive line. Joe Tippmann, they took him a few years ago. AVT, Olu, Fashanu. They also have John Simpson at guard as well. Right? Why not get a right tackle to solidify that offensive line? You heard Aaron Glenn already talk about how they plan to use all 3 running backs. You want to have a dominant run game? Get your starting 5, get it through the draft, get your right tackle.
How about the safety position? I like the free agent signing of Andre Cisco. You have a lot of free safeties back there because Tony Adams returns. He signed his tender. Isaiah Oliver, key re-signing. He's got some familiarity with Steve Wilks, but he's a chess piece. Maybe the Jets address the strong safety position in the draft, and this is an intriguing safety class.
Without a doubt, this is a top 2 or 3 need for the Jets, and I don't think a lot of people are talking about it, and you hit it right on the head, EA. A lot of free safety. They need that typical in-the-box safety that you can add to minimize or mitigate the run game. A guy that's going to be physical in the box. Talked about it. I like this draft class. Andrew Makuba's a good guy. Watts from Notre Dame. There's some good safeties in this draft.
But the Jets did address the cornerback position opposite Sauce Gardner. Of course, DJ Reed, he signs a free agency with the Detroit Lions. Brandon Stevens is going to get a chance here. And you got to figure if Sauce Gardner's on one side, Stevens is going to have the ball thrown his way quite a bit.
That's okay. That's all right. I mean, Brandon Stevens has been a starting corner on the #1 defense in football just 2 years ago in Baltimore when they led the league in takeaways. They led the league in sacks. And part of it was they knew how to cover. And they know how to, in zone drop and some of the things that he's done. He's done a lot of different things, and he's a guy that has just continued to develop. And I think you can stand tall with Brandon Stevens on opposite of Sauce Gardner right now.
Well, you all stood tall tonight. There's no doubt about that. But we're just getting our draft coverage started because next week our group will reveal our mock draft. It won't be long now before everybody's on the clock.